Good morning, children. Today we are going to learn a lesson from History, Chapter 8, Medieval India, in that the Delhi Sultanate. First, the introduction part. As you know, in the 11th and 12th century AD, the Turkish invasion had happened. In the 11th and 12th century AD, the Muslims under Muhammad Ghazni and Muhammad Ghori invaded India. You know that Muhammad Ghazni invaded 17 times and he plundered the wealth of India, but he did not settle down. But Muhammad Ghori, who invaded in India and succeeded in establishing a Muslim empire in this country. So the period between 1206 and 1526, when 5 dynasties successfully ruled Delhi from, this period is known as Delhi Sultanate. It was so called because it was so called in the sense it was called the Sultanate period because the rulers of various dynasties who ruled from their capital at Delhi were called the Sultans. So now today we are going to learn what are the main sources that give information about the Delhi Sultanate. Actually, the sources were the inscriptions and monuments. So now we are going to learn only about the monuments, particularly that Qutub Minar. So you could see the picture here. This is the picture of Qutub Minar. It is located in Delhi. So we are now learning about the Qutub Minar. So this Qutub Minar was started by Qutbuddin Aibak. He was the founder of the slave dynasty, and this monument was dedicated to the Sufi saint. His name was Qutbuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki, who was greatly venerated by the people of Delhi. That means he was greatly respected by the people of Delhi. Next, we go to the main features of this Qutub Minar. What were the main features of this Qutub Minar? When originally completed, that means when it was started by Qutbuddin Aibak, it rose to a height of 71.4 meters with only the 4 stories. And the tower was damaged by lightning in 1369. And in course of repairs and renovation, Firoz Shah Tughlaq further raised its sides and he added 2 more stories. You could see here Qutbuddin Aibak started this construction of Qutub Minar in 1195. It is in 1199 CE and it was completed by Iltutmish. It was completed in 1230 CE. Again it was got repaired, renovated by Firoz Shah Tughlaq in 1369. So that now it has got the 5 stories. Now the main features. What are the main features of this structure? The height. The height is 71.4 meters with 4 stories. Now it has got the 5 stories. Tapering as they ascend. Tapering means you could see that. This is what? At the bottom you can see the wider as you go the size reduces. It has 5 stories tapering as they ascend. Each story is separated from the other by projecting a balcony. Then the third point is here, the entrance is through the doorway at the northern side. The entrance for this minar is from the northern side. Then it is about the structure. The structure at the base you could see that the minar is a circular tower about 13.8 meters diameter at the base and tapers to the width of around 3 meters at the summit. And totally here we have got 379 steps. 379 steps leading to the top. Then we come to the material. What was the material used for the construction of this structure? It is the treadstone, marble and grey quartz were used for constructing the tower. Then Then next is here, each tower has a projecting balcony, and these balconies were supported in such a way that whole structure takes the load of weight. No wonder that such an old building has lasted so many centuries. Then finally we come to the conclusion that the verses from the Holy Quran and some intricate carvings, intricate means very delicate type of carvings, were done with the floral motifs and also inscribed on this tower. That means on this tower you could see that a very minute designs were carved, many floral designs also. When you observe very closely, you could find out all these things on this minaret. Okay children, this is about the Qutub Minar. Next we go to the political history of this Delhi Sultanate. We are not going to learn everything. We are going to learn only about the Khilji dynasty and the Tughlaq dynasty. In this one only the two important rulers, Alauddin Khilji and then Muhammad bin Tughlaq. But for your information, I'll show you the entire Sultanate, the dynasties. Now here you could see the dynasties of the Delhi Sultanate. So here this is that slave dynasty, or you say the Mamluk dynasty. Founder of that slave dynasty, Qutbuddin Aibak, and this one successor was that Iltutmish. Iltutmish's successor was that Razia. Razia was succeeded by this Balban. All these were the four important sultans of slave dynasty. Then the Khilji. Khilji dynasty's founder was the Jalaluddin Khilji, and he was succeeded by his nephew Alauddin Khilji. So this Alauddin Khilji we are going to learn about his policies, about his administration we are going to learn. This is included in our syllabus. Next, after that the Khilji dynasty, it is the Tughlaqs. Tughlaq's founder was that Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, and he was succeeded by his son Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So about him we are going to learn. After Muhammad bin Tughlaq, it is about Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Then it comes to the Lodi. Lodis, here that founder of Lodi is that Bahlul Lodi, succeeded by Sikandar Lodi. Then it was Ibrahim Lodi. I think this Ibrahim Lodi you are aware. You have studied in your previous classes also. This is the picture of Ibrahim Lodi. Now keep in your mind, we are going to learn only this Muhammad bin Tughlaq and then Alauddin Khilji. Alauddin Khilji ruled from 1296 to 1316. Then Muhammad bin Tughlaq was ruled from 1325 to 1351. Now we begin the political history from this Alauddin Khilji. First, the introduction to that Khilji dynasty. The last ruler of the slave dynasty was murdered in 1290, and there arose a new line of rulers are known as the Khiljis. Jalaluddin Khilji was the founder of the Khilji dynasty, who came to the throne after killing Kaikubad, the last king of the slave dynasty. He was murdered by his nephew Alauddin Khilji, who proclaimed himself as the Sultan. So this is the story of Alauddin Khilji. Khilji ruled from 1296 to 1316 CE. So now about his the description. Alauddin Khilji, he was an extremely effective and ambitious ruler, and he was also an outstanding general. He introduced many regulations, or you say the policies for making his reign free from rebellions. So now we are going to learn about his important policies. What were the policies introduced by Alauddin Khilji? First, it is about the market regulations. So what are those market regulations? So the details are given in your page number 75. If you have kept your book open, please look into the book and listen to me carefully. So about the market regulations. Alauddin is best known in the history for his market regulations. First and foremost thing what he did here, he fixed the cost of all commodities such as food grains, sugar and cooking oil. So For this purpose, he set up 3 types of markets at Delhi. One market that was for food grains, and the second one that was for costly clothes, and the third one for horses, slaves, and also for the cattle. Got it? So each market was put under the charge of a controller of a market. So that controller was known as Shahana. He was known as Shahana. Very strict punishments were prescribed for cheating and underweighing goods. That means any type of malpractices or the cheating, he came to know, means those people were getting a severe punishment. His rule was completely filled with the fear. So nobody was dare enough to do the mistakes. Second one is here the Deccan expedition. Means not only was good in bringing the reforms, even to expand his territory, he wanted to expand his rule even in the south. For that what he did, he had a good general, his name was Malik Kafur. So he sent this Malik Kafur to the expedition to the Deccan. The kingdoms of Devagiri, Warangal, Dwarasamudra and Madurai. These were conquered but not annexed. Alauddin did not annex these kingdoms for 2 reasons. The first reason, he realized that it would be practically difficult to control these distant lands from Delhi. That means it was not possible for him to maintain. Second, he was more interested in acquiring the wealth of these kingdoms for the maintenance of huge army. Alauddin was knowing South was wealthier than the North Indian kingdoms. His main interest was to carry away the wealth. So, the rulers of Deccan were forced to accept his overlordship and pay annual tribute to him. Understood, children? Next it is about the measures. What are the measures taken by him against the nobility? That means how did he control his officials? When Alauddin Khilji came to the throne, he had to face a series of rebellions from the nobles. That means the courtier, that means the people who are working in the court, they did not like him. So he took a number of measures to crush their power. First thing is here, what was the first measure? The nobles were not allowed to hold parties or the festives or to form marriage alliances without the permission of the Sultan. That means first thing is here, their freedom was grabbed. Alauddin took away their freedom. Next is here, the use of wine and intoxicants was banned. Gambling was forbidden and gamblers were severely punished. You know, gambling means patta, the cards. Now presently we say the cards. Fourth, he stopped paying the soldiers in land and introduced the cash salaries. Then fifth, he established an efficient spy system to keep a check on the activities of the nobles. Even this was done by Gupta's period also. Then even in the Maurya's period also you could see that. So he introduced the spy system so that the activities of the nobles were looked after. Next it is about the military. How was the military system under Alauddin? He himself was a great warrior, you know that. Alauddin was the first ruler of Delhi who laid the foundation of a permanent standing army. That means he kept an army always ready. He imported quality horses and also started the system of branding the horses. That means to identify the horses, he used a process known as dag, so that the soldiers could not replace them with the inferior quality horses. Even sometimes when the horses were sent to the battlefield, you would know that these horses were only entered into the field. Another thing is here, introduce the system of chehra. This is like a ID card, what we have now at present. So this Chehra, that is given a kind of identity card for every soldier. And you know that those days there were chances of doing the proxy. That means the soldier was replaced by another person. So this should not have been happened. The soldiers should not cheat their rulers. So for that sake he introduced that Chehra. He himself approved all recruitments to the army. That means here when the army was appointed, the soldiers were appointed, he himself recruited them and paid cash salaries to the soldiers from the royal treasury. Then comes revenue reforms. What were the reforms introduced related to the revenue? Alauddin Khilji introduced a number of important measures to get maximum revenue. He brought all the land of the empires under his direct control. First thing, he brought all the lands under his control. Then he introduced practice of measuring the land and fixing the state share accordingly. That means according to the measurement of the land, the tax was fixed. He increased the land revenue from 1/3 to 1/2 and demanded it to be paid in cash, not in kind, because he was using much cash to pay the salary or the other expenses. So he expected the revenue also to be paid in cash. He appointed special officers also to collect the land revenue. But towards the end of his life, Alauddin was dominated by Malik Kafur, the most trusted general of his own. After many intrigues, Khilji family came to an end when Ghazi Malik, the governor of Dipalpur, ascended the throne. Got it, children? This is about Alauddin Khilji. Next we are moving to Tughlaq, Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Now we are going to learn Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Muhammad bin Tughlaq ruled from 1325 to 1351. So first let us find out the founder. In 1320, this Ghazi Malik, he took the title of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq Shah and began the Tughlaq dynasty. He died during the collapse of a pavilion built in his honor in 1325. So Ghiyasuddin's son, Jonah Khan, that means here earlier name of Muhammad bin Tughlaq was Jonah Khan. He ascended the throne and took the title Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Basically, Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a learned. See, Muhammad bin Tughlaq was one of the most remarkable rulers of this medieval period. He was a great scholar. He had great interest in religion and philosophy. He had also mastered mathematics, astronomy, logic and physical sciences. And he was a lover of a Persian literature, music, fine art and calligraphy. But his weak points. He was the most controversial ruler in the medieval history. The stories of his success or failure run side by side, but he is better known for his administrative disasters. He was good, having the good ideas. Only thing is here, he was not having the practical knowledge when and how to implement these measures. So he is referred to as a mixture of opposites or sometimes as a wise, foolish king. So now let us move to that controversial steps or the disaster policies introduced by this Muhammad bin Tughlaq. First is here the transfer of capital. Transfer of capital. So let us find out why did Muhammad bin Tughlaq transfer his capital from Delhi to Daulatabad, or you say that earlier it was known as Devagiri. During Muhammad bin Tughlaq's reign, the empire also spread in the south. So he shifted his capital to Devagiri near modern Aurangabad and renamed it as Daulatabad. Why did he do so? The reasons are given like this. Daulatabad was extremely located from where he could control the Deccan territories. This was the idea of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Secondly, Delhi was in the grip of severe famine. And thirdly, here Delhi was constantly threatened by the Mongol invasions. So in order to get rid of all these things, he shifted to Devagiri. He ordered the people of Delhi, including religious heads, also to shift to Daulatabad. On realizing the gravity of the threat from northwest, he decided to shift capital back to Delhi. So this caused lots of hardship to the people. So his idea was good. He could have shifted only his office, or you say the authority related for his administration, but he made the entire people of Delhi to shift. That was his mistake. Secondly, here the token currency. So why did he introduce the token currency? Another controversial step which Muhammad bin Tughlaq took was the introduction of the token currency. What is the meaning of this token currency? It is nothing but introduction of bronze tanka in place of silver tankas. That means here coins. Tanka means nothing but the coins. So introduce the bronze in place of silver because he was running short of silver. But this experiment also failed due to the circulation of counterfeit, or you say the fake coins, on a very large scale, which caused chaos in trade and commerce. Consequently, he withdrew the token currency. So this token currency, that means the fake notes, even today we are facing the problem. Recently you could see that 2000 rupees, the pink notes, how it was duplicate notes are circulated. Even in this 21st century, we are not away from this type of fake currencies. Next, the taxation in dope, the third policy. Muhammad bin Tughlaq wanted to conquer territories not only in India but also in Central Asia. So for that he required a large army and also large amount of money to pay for the army. So in order to get more revenue, he increased the land tax in the fertile region of Ganga, Yamuna, Doab. You know that was the region where the cultivation could do throughout the year and giving the crop regularly. At the same time, a severe famine broke out in the area and the people refused to pay the extra taxes and rose in rebellion. By this time, as a ruler, he could have taken measures to solve the problems of the farmers. He did not do so. But the tax collectors showed no mercy and took stern measures to collect the taxes. So this was another drastic mistake committed by the Muhammad bin Tughlaq. This made some peasants to abandon their land and flee to jungles. So instead of facing the atrocities, the farmers left their lands and they went into jungles. Muhammad bin Tughlaq took effective steps to fight the famine and save the situation. He ordered free distribution of grains, advanced loans to the peasants, improved irrigation facilities. But it was too late and a number of people were starved to death as agriculture suffered a heavy setback in the Doab area. I told you, his measures, his administrative policies, all these things were good, but he was not knowing how to implement, when to implement. That was the weak point in him. Next, plan of conquest. That is the fourth measure he had taken. Muhammad bin Tughlaq dreamt of conquering the world like Alexander, you know that. So he organized a huge army and paid 1 full year's salary in advance to his soldiers. Ridiculous, don't you feel? He then decided to conquer Khorasan, Persia, that means the present Iran, and also Iraq. But after a year, following the failure of token currency, Muhammad bin Tughlaq abandoned the project and disbanded the army. So another loss he had faced. So these were all the controversial policies, or you say the steps taken by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Understood, children? So for more details or more anything related to this topic, refer page number 76 and 77. Study properly. Next we go to the administration. administration of this Delhi Sultanate. Now we are going to learn the administration under Delhi Sultans. The state set up by the Turks towards the end of the 12th century in northern India gradually developed into a powerful and highly centralized state. First we start with that Sultan, or you say the central government. The Sultan was the supreme executive, legislative, judicial and military authority. The Sultan kept an eye on revenue and expenditure, and he was assisted by a number of ministers. You can say that the Council of Ministers. Under that, the most important minister, Wazir. He was the key figure in the administration, who was called as the Prime Minister. So the Wazir supervised the work of all other officials, but the final decision was always taken by the Sultan. Next is that Aris-e-Mumalik. So who is this Aris-e-Mumalik? He was in charge of the army. Aris was not the commander-in-chief of the army, since the Sultan himself commanded all the armed forces. The special responsibility of Aris department was to recruit, equip and pay the army. Next, Sultan was assisted by two important departments. You could see here, Diwani Risalat and Diwani Insha. So what is this Diwani Risalat? Diwani Risalat dealt with the religious matters and was presided by the Chief Sadr, who was generally leading a Qazi. So this Qazi was the head of the Department of Justice and advised the Sultan on both civil and religious matters. Then Diwani Hinsha. So Diwani Hinsha dealt with the state correspondence. That means the another general facts, or you say the things he used to handle. Next, the provincial administration. Under the provincial administration, the empire, that means the whole empire was divided into the provinces, and those provinces were known as Iktas. And each province was placed under an official called as Muktis. To facilitate local administration, and provinces were further divided into shiks. That means the Iktas were divided into shiks and the parganas, or you say the districts. The lowest unit of administration was the village. You could see here, the lowest unit of the administration was the village. The village headman was known as the Mukadam, and this village headman was supported by the record keeper. The record keeper was known as Patwari, and the village accountant was known as Mushrif. Got it, children? Each village had also panchayat to settle the local disputes. At present, what we have, the village panchayats in the same way, but the heads of the villages were named different. Got it? So the whole empire divided into provinces. Provinces were known as the Iktas. Iktas were headed by Muktis. Again, the Iktas were divided into shiks and the parganas, nothing but the districts. And the lowest unit was the village. Village head was known as Mukadam, and he was assisted by a record keeper, Patwari, and a Mushrif, the village accountant. Then comes, it's about the Ikta system. What is this Ikta system? Ikta system means here the practice of giving grants of revenue from a territory. That is known as Ikta. Those who are given Iktas were known as Iktadars. This one we will come to know, that means the officials were given this one, in charge of doing this work. That means whatever the revenue comes from that particular territory, that goes to that particular officer, that is Iktedar. So what he used to do this? Out of this grant, the Iktedar had to maintain themselves and their families, and also the soldiers for the use by the Sultan during the war. This one even in the under the Marathas, previously we studied Jagirdars, Talukdars. Then under the next we are going to learn under the Mughals also. That means here they have to taken care of the territory, then the collection of the revenue, and that revenue was used by for themselves, maintenance of themselves, their families, and also to maintain the army, to keep an army always ready to support the Sultan in case of war. Finally, we come to the conclusion here. When the central authority became weak, many of these iqtidars functioned as independent rulers of the territories under their command. That is why Alauddin Khilji, he did not give them any lands as their salary or their reward, and he maintained only with the cash. And this is about the Delhi Sultanate, and you have to sit and study very properly, even related to the administration. If you want to know more details, you have to sit and study. That is in the page number 77. And then we are going to the assignments. Assignment, the textual exercises only, not all the questions. All that single line short question answers, you mark it in the textbook only. Assignment, you have to go for that structural questions, page number 78. Page number 78, structural questions. In that one, the second, third, and the second, third, fourth, and the fifth. Fifth one is the picture study. Got it, children? The second question, it is reference to the Khilji dynasty. Third question, it is reference to Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Then the fourth, it is refer to the administration system. All these things are included in our syllabus, don't forget. And the fifth question, it is your about the picture study about Qutub Minar. Got it, children? You have to sit, learn properly and practice all these, write these assignments in your 100 pages book or in your long sheet notebooks, but then and there itself you have to do this. Okay, have a nice day.